Hello everyone and welcome to The Information, where you will get all the information on the latest in electronic, indie pop, and experimental music. Today we have an album review, this time the Porches record, The House, that just came out last week on Domino Records. Porches, for those who don't know, is helmed by Åkeren, Maine, and he's been fronting the project since about 2010. He does have a few albums under his belt, but the one that brought him the most acclaim was his major label debut, which came out in 2016, called Pool, which was his first for Domino Records. Pool did also mark a sonic shift in Porches' sound. He went a lot more electronic on this album. Normally he was kind of an indie rock, indie folk kind of sound, but on Pool he really embraced the electronic sound and really came through with a lot of metallic, fun dance beats, but also did have kind of those guitar-driven tracks that you would hear probably on his earlier stuff. After the critical acclaim that Pool had garnered, people including myself were excited to see what his follow-up effort would be, and it would seem that Åkeren has decided to stick with the same electronic and synth pop palette that made up the majority of his previous record, Pool. This new album here is 14 tracks long, and it's just over 37 minutes, so we're dealing with a lot of tracks that are shorter in length. I will note that a lot of these shorter songs are like sub 2 minutes, and the main difference with those, as opposed to the shorter, 2.5 minute tracks that I found on Pool, were that the ones on House here feel like they're still kind of demos, they're not quite as fleshed out. On Pool, the shorter songs like Mood, and especially Car, those you could tell right out of the gate were full, fleshed out songs. They had, the verse, chorus, verse structure, catchy hooks. They were able to compact all of what made great Porches songs into these short runtimes, which really benefited the album because it really gave it this air of just not having any filler, which is always the sign of a good album in my opinion. Songs like Swimmer and Åkeren and Understanding, I would definitely say this album would work better if all three of those were just not included on the album. I understand the direction that Åkeren Maine wanted to go with this new album was that he was quoted as saying that he wanted to sort of capture songs in the moment, like kind of the day that they were recorded, and not really spend too much time on trying to polish them up or add new elements and labor over them for a super long time, which is, that's a fair thing to do. I certainly won't fault him for trying to come up with new approaches to songcraft and songwriting. And I will say, I just want to get another thing out of the way. Another negative that I found real quick was the opener, Leave the House. I was excited when I saw Alex G's name pop up in the vocals for this song, but that was immediately tempered pretty quickly by hearing him sing the vocals in a very off-putting falsetto, completely out of his range. I mean, for anybody that listened to his last album, Rocket, and hearing songs like Bobby, and especially Sports Star, he doesn't quite have the range when he tries to reach into the upper register. Aaron's vocals are fine, but definitely Alex's, they're a little too dry. I will say once the beat does come in, it does kind of pick things up a little bit. It does give it a good energy that it did need, but I don't think it's enough to save the track, and I still think it starts out as an awkward opener for sure. That being said, it does kick off right afterwards with Find Me, which is the big single off of the album. It's definitely the song you would want to play most at all of your college parties, events like that. It's his poppiest and most direct song on the album for sure as well. It's got shuffling, skittering, percussion, and a nice strobe-lit dance beat. The kick drum is nice, insistent, and thumping. The lyrics do seem a little bit vague at first. He's just talking about, I don't want to let it find me. He doesn't really specify what the it is within the song, but he has gone on record saying that the song and the lyrics especially are pretty much about anxiety attacks and feeling them come on and not really being in a situation or a place where he can kind of control it or do anything about it. One of the lines that he sings regarding that is he sings, "When I feel it coming down, I can't have anyone around, I can't let it find me," which, anybody that's ever been through an anxiety attack or even has anxiety or, thinks that they're not ready for a test they haven't studied for, that's definitely a lyric that hits home to a lot of people, I'm sure. There's some fun, colorful, vibrant synthetic horns that come in during the chorus, which I really like. And the backing vocals are really interesting too. They're sort of like this pitched up fusion of like Chipmunk or Alien or Baby, just like kind of a mix of all three of those. It gives it a really unique sound. Makes the tune a little bit more memorable overall. Right after that, we get the first of the three sort of shorter demo-ish tracks with Understanding, which is Åkeren Maine's dad, Peter, actually delivering sort of a sing-sung / spoken word declaration of love, finding a love that's perfect, that's beautiful. There's some nice 80s synth pads that are underneath the vocals trying to sort of create a really relaxing and amorous bed of sound, but it fades out even before a minute, so there's not really a whole lot to say about that tune. Fortunately, before I even have time to measure how inconsequential Understanding was, we get, without a doubt, the best track on the album, and that is Now the Water. It starts out really great, got a nice mid-tempo dance groove, some really solid percussion, and some great chord progressions. There's some nice guitar, and some lush synth pads, sort of creating this really gorgeous atmosphere, really inviting, really warm. And the refrain where Åkeren sings, "Oh, I feel it deeper now, and it's better somehow," the way he sings that vocal melody coupled with the female backing vocals that are on this part as well, really make the track shine. The only complaint that I would have had about this song when I was first listening to it is that the refrain didn't last long enough, and fortunately it was as if Åkeren heard my complaints mid-song and extended the refrain towards the end of the song, the last time it appears. The background vocals are from Maya Lehner, who is not someone that I've been familiar with, but she does show up later on the album, doing backing vocals on the track With Longing, which is a song that has some synths that are really similar to his song on Pool, Security. It's a more mellow tune. There is a return of the auto-tune, which we heard back on Pool as well. I think it works a lot better here. I think Åkeren's vocals are more polished. I think he's grown a bit as a singer since his last record. And there's a nice 90s drum machine beat, complete with some really cool metallic percussion, maybe like a pitched down tambourine hit or something like that. Again, similar to Security, you do sort of get this almost whimpering, sort of crying synth lead that shows up during the chorus. And then about the last quarter of the track, we get introduced to this really interesting saxophone drone. I don't know if he edited it to be stretched out and just have it this long consistent note, or if the guy just played the note and they just kind of looped it. But the interesting thing about the drone is that you're hearing that sax note elongated, and then you're also hearing a sax solo on top of that drone, which is a really interesting combination of sounds. The drone almost sounds like a swarm of buzzing bees. It has a really interesting tone to it. I will say one of the shorter tracks that actually does end up working very well is the song Country, which features backing vocals from Dev Hynes, aka Blood Orange, and Brendan Cook, aka Starchild in the New Romantics. There's some really strong, vivid imagery in this track, lots of continued references to water and pools. There's some really strange lyrics in here where he says, "Watch the water drip from my mouth to yours. I like the way you take a sip." I do like how the organ that gets introduced towards the last end of the track sort of digitally crumbles and kind of fades away. I really like how that kind of sounds. By My Side is probably the best ballad of the bunch on the album. It starts out with a quick, rushed chop of horns, and then we're introduced to some gorgeous piano chords, especially once the chorus comes in. The lyrics find Åkeren in mid-argument. He does own up to his faults in this song. He says, "It's my fault. I know, it's just hard to swallow." And while he doesn't enjoy these arguments, he does find them therapeutic for the long term. He has a lyric following that where he says, "It is good to know ourselves, because most of the time I have no idea who I see in the mirror." There are a lot more personal lyrics on this album, which I do dig. Besides With Longing, Oh No is probably the best track on the B-side of the album. It starts out with some very filtered, watery guitar. Sounds like something that would be on an Alex G or a Conan Moccasin track. The electronic beat that comes in here does work a little less effectively than it does on other tracks on the album. There's also not really much to speak of in the way of a chorus. It's basically just Åkeren repeating the words "oh no" over and over again, and the plodding, insistent kick drum in the first half of the track really just feels very repetitive and doesn't do a whole lot to the energy. It comes across as very monotonous and boring. Once we get to the second and final chorus, fortunately, it does get fleshed out a little bit with some added instrumentation. We do get a nice snare, a very intriguing bass line, and some weird fumbling, again metallic percussion. Sort of sounds like silverware being tapped on a counter or something like that. And then we get the final track on the album, Anything You Want, which ends up recycling lyrics on the track With Longing. He does reinterpret them a little bit, whereas on With Longing he sings, "Tell me what you want to hear, I want you to hear it. Tell me what you want to feel, you know I want to hear it." And then on Anything You Want he sings, "Tell me anything that you want to feel, oh I want you near it." I'm not sure why he felt the need to recycle the lyrics and sort of reinterpret them to fit the song, but it's an interesting decision nonetheless. Not the strongest way to end the album off, but fortunately we do get just enough good tunes in the first half of the album pretty much, and a couple decent songs on the back half to make this a worthwhile listen, I think, even though probably I've sounded like I've mentioned more negative things than positive. I definitely did enjoy listening to the album. There were just, again, some production choices. Again, I don't appreciate using the demo quality tracks interspersed throughout the track listing here. I don't think they brought anything to the record or added anything or enhanced anything in any way. Remove those and I think you have a much more concise, much better album. I don't think it's as good as Pool. I don't think it's quite as engaging, but there are definitely still a good number of hooks and melodies and nice moments of instrumentation and choruses to still make it worth your while. So overall, I would give The House by Porches right around a 7. Let me know what you guys thought of this album. Have you heard it? You know, do you have a favorite track, least favorite track from it? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Still growing this channel, so I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Thanks for the response to my previous video where I reviewed the Panda Bear EP. That got a lot of excitement and views around it, which was unexpected, so I really appreciate you guys hanging around and watching that video. But I'll see you guys in the next video, and thanks again for watching The Information.